And hello, everybody. Welcome to today's post daily news. My name is Wai Ting. I will be leading the show today. We are giving John a bit of time off to have lunch. We're not giving him all of the afternoon off. Of course, we can't imagine doing that because he will be joining me later today, 3 o'clock Eastern Time, for Ask Away, our latest edition of Ask Away, which is our monthly mailbag exclusive to the Post Wrestling Cafe. So if you happen to be a Double Plus patron, you can join us live at 3 p.m. Eastern. Just look for the link at postwrestlingcafe.com. But if you're just a member of any tier, you can have access to the podcast shortly afterwards. But joining me today, very excited to have her again here, the always welcome Kate from Montreal.
Hello, good afternoon. Always excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Still getting used to seeing Kate in the daytime here with daylight shining in from her back.
I don't usually appear during the daytimes. This is weird for me.
Yes.
I hide out in my cave until it gets dark.
And thank you for joining me today, Kate, as always, because, maybe on the surface, didn't really seem to be that big of a news day, but nonetheless, we have a lot of stories to catch up on, of course.
Yeah, definitely.
Because yesterday, John and I, of course, we spent some time talking about the Owen Hart documentary, and therefore we didn't really get to some of the news. So this is essentially kind of our catch up with the weekend, as well as everything that's kind of gone on yesterday. So let's start off here without wasting much more time, and we are going to get into the latest involving Kota Ibushi and New Japan Pro Wrestling, and it is a saga that I feel like, at least for a few days, feel like it was kind of cooling off. But Kota Ibushi, again, took to social media yesterday to basically everybody. It's not. I mean, if you thought the story was, maybe not very nice, I mean, the latest chapter is that much darker. So as we discussed last time with this story, what we are getting is a translation of Kota Ibushi's already very deliberately unique and cryptic writing styles from Japanese to English. I believe personally that the translations are the most reputable we can find in the community, courtesy of Joe at the Feelite. However, as always, please consider that we are reading these tweets through several filters, along with allegations that are only coming from one side. So again, please take everything with that grain of salt. So Ibushi took to Twitter again yesterday to reveal a few more details about the reasons why he decided to go public with some of his frustrations with New Japan Pro Wrestling executives Kikuchi and Obari. And trigger warning here, because the story involves mentions of attempted suicide. So again, here we are, some translations courtesy of the Feelite, and also his website, vendingmachineseat.com. And this is basically Ibushi talking about how, saying, I'm going to read basically exactly what the translation is here. "This is sudden, but I can't take looking at this anymore after all, so I'm going to share it. The real truth behind why I posted the names and screenshots before. I was unsure if I should share this, but I can't bear to look at the current state of my mother anymore, so I'm going to tell you. First, they still haven't apologized. Do Kikuchi and Obari feel no guilt? They announced via Line, which is sort of a popular social direct messaging app in Japan. They announced via Line that they're going to fire me without meeting me once. My mother contacted me, concerned, maybe because she noticed that I was stressed and worried. Then I couldn't take it anymore either, so I talked to her about how this sudden Line message had come and how I've been the victim of power harassment again and again, and she feebly told me, it's okay if you quit. The next day, my mother tried to kill herself. I said bluntly that I'm never going to forgive Kikuchi and the current president. That's why I'm going to fight until the end." And again, we thank Joe at the Feelite and vendingmachineseat.com for the translation. I also direct people to that website for a very comprehensive translated timeline resource for this entire saga. So, Kate, maybe just to kind of give a bit of a recap, Ibushi gets injured in the G1 final last year, seemingly is asked to return before he's ready, was advertised for the New Japan Cup and then subsequently removed. We later learned through Ibushi's tweets that he was threatened to be fired by an executive named Kikuchi for a number of other reasons, seemingly including maybe appearing at other promotions. Ibushi responds by leaking the direct messages and then, proceeding to send pretty cryptic, sort of scandalous tweets about potentially leaking information about members of the company online. And then in this latest chapter, he's detailing that sometime after Mother's Day, which is when Ibushi sent out those screenshots, Ibushi's mother contacted her, sensing that her son was stressed. She told him that it was okay to quit. Ibushi says her mother later attempted suicide a day after this conversation, presumably from this emotional stress. And Ibushi indicates that it's a miracle that she survived, but seems to indicate that she has a broken hip. Also alleges that Kikuchi and New Japan President Takami Obari have yet to apologize or meet him or answer his messages, and that he has consulted some form of representation. So this situation just keeps getting uglier. There seems to be zero resolve on the horizon, and at this point, I mean, it's beyond, I think, even us talking about a return to professional wrestling, and more so just about a concern for the well-being of Ibushi and his family.
Absolutely. And this is, as you said, this is a significantly darker turn, and how horrifying it must be to go through this, but and also to talk about it publicly it would be extremely difficult for him. I think it is probably the right move by New Japan at this point to not speak publicly about it. I think that anything that they said at this point would reflect badly on them. There's nothing you can say to respond to this. I do hope that they reach out to him. I hope that they're able to at least broker some kind of peace between themselves. And but this is, you definitely have the feeling that this is going to get uglier, because I just don't see how it couldn't. These are very serious accusations, and obviously there's legal aspects to it, and there are also these emotional aspects where the company is portrayed as having an extremely detrimental effect on Ibushi's mental health and on his family's mental health. That's I hope that he and his family are okay. I hope that his mother is recovering well, and I hope that they're able to move beyond this.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah. Again, these sort of very public displays of stress are very concerning. And if there's anything, I don't know what we can really do as a wrestling fan base, but if there's anything we can do, I think it's at this point not necessarily, talking about what if scenarios of this person showing up in this promotion or what. Like, it seems to be a situation that's really a lot more serious than just a professional wrestling career at this point. So
Absolutely.
I really hope the appropriate help is given to Ibushi, and that the appropriate means of solving at least some of the stress of the situation is able to reach that family. So that is the latest with Kota Ibushi. We stay at least somewhat involved with New Japan here because we have an update on Will Ospreay. Over the weekend, it appeared as though RevPro initially had Ospreay listed for their Epic Encounter show. He was set to take on Minoru Suzuki, but they later tweeted that Ospreay will not be appearing on the show. And then it was later revealed that he had suffered a kidney infection. It was thought to be originally food poisoning, but it was later discovered to be a kidney infection. And Will Ospreay himself took to Twitter and tweets that, "I honestly can't tell you how gutted I am to be missing RevPro. I have a temperature of 40 degrees. I can't stand up without feeling the need to faint. I'm sweating and then cold right away, straight away. Friday night, I had my blood taken to find out I have a serious kidney infection." He says, "Sorry." So we, of course, wish Will Ospreay a recovery. He's tweeted out photos of him receiving some IV. And, just some quick Google MDing seems to indicate that, kidney infection recovery time seems to be about 2 weeks, which should put him in the clear for a large event like the Forbidden Door if he's scheduled to be on that show on June 26th. But it is, of course, something to keep an eye on, especially for an athlete who competes typically at his level.
Yeah, and that's kidney infections can be they can be persistent, which is a pain. I'm glad that he's getting treatment. He has had a rough run in the last little while. I mean, leaving aside the wrestling injury that he suffered. He's had COVID twice, despite being vaccinated, and now this. I feel for the guy, and that's terrible news. And one more blow, I think, keeps stopping him from getting fully back on track. Just selfishly, I really want him to be recovered. And I don't know now if this is going to be possible for the GCW show he's scheduled for, which is on the 19th, where he's supposed to have his match with Nick Wayne. And because I'm really looking forward to that. But obviously, safety first, health first. Take care of yourself, and I wish him a speedy recovery.
So, unfortunately, he did not get to face Minoru Suzuki at RevPro, but Minoru Suzuki did end up facing Michael Oku and defeated Michael Oku. Good old Murder Grandpa did have a message for Will Ospreay after the match saying, "Please take care and fuck you." So, very nice of Minoru Suzuki.
Grandpa gonna grandpa. Yep.
Sticking with
How do you not love him?
How do you not love him? Of course. Sticking with RevPro and that epic encounter show, we saw the return of Gabriel Kidd. Gabriel Kidd, of course, he made his welcome return to wrestling after announcing his temporary departure due to mental health struggles about 3 months ago. And this is, again, from his now currently inactive Twitter, when he tweeted, "This isn't a wrestling promo. I'm not well and will be taking time off because after 13 years of dedicating my life and putting wrestling first, I need a rest. Thank you to my family and closest friends for giving me the wake-up call I've needed for a while. I'll be back." And he returned here, answering a challenge from a wrestler by the name of, sorry, I don't have all that information here, but he answered a challenge from Dan Maloney here and defeated Dan Maloney at RevPro in Epic Encounter. Gabriel Kidd making a return. Any thoughts, Kate? Hello? Can you hear me?
I'm glad to see that he's back. Yeah.
Sorry, I think we're slightly delayed,
okay.
But please continue.
Oh, are we like... Okay. What I was going to say, I know that when he came back, he was injured. He came back last time. He had referred to mental health struggles in the past and referred to feeling suicidal, and did a very powerful promo about it. Unfortunately, not that long after he came back, he did seem to be struggling, and unfortunately, rather publicly struggling for a while. So he backed away again. I'm very glad, and I hope that he's feeling a lot healthier than he has been. He's a talented guy. I look forward to seeing more of him. I'm familiar mostly with him through his work with New Japan.
Yeah, and hopefully the time off was, what he needed, and I think everybody is pulling for him to, get back up to the status that he was at and making more appearances frequently for New Japan and beyond. And let's stay in the topic of maybe, Japanese professional wrestling here, as last night, or this was a Sunday, I believe. Sunday was the Hana Kimura Memorial Show, BAGUS. And at this point, I want to direct everybody, first of all, to the wonderful report from our own Karen Peterson, who's in the chat room right now. So if I get anything wrong, Karen, please correct me. But she really took the time, personally requested to cover this show. Of course, the second annual memorial tribute show for Hana Kimura, put on by her mother, Kyoko. And I've had a chance to watch 2 of the matches on the card, and I've not yet. I would encourage everybody to go purchase the show, and especially if you're going to do so, follow Karen's English translations, because the show is in Japanese, but because of a show of this nature features so much, I think, not just needing to understand the language, but to understand the context and the significance of a lot of the things that were happening. Highly recommend a read of this report, even if you aren't going to watch the show.
It's an excellent article, and I haven't seen the show yet, but the article is great. It's worth reading, even if you're not going to be able to see the show.
The main event saw World of Stardom champion Shuri take on Benny, aka the other Asuka. Match went about 20 minutes, with Benny largely playing the underdog against what is one of the best wrestlers in the world in Shuri. It was a stellar match, hard hitting, technical, gutsy. I would say worth the price of admission alone, which is only $20 American here. But what seemed to be the emotional highlight of the night for many people, including Karen, came in the form of Jungle Kiona's exhibition match against an unnamed opponent. And the significance of this comes because Jungle Kiona hadn't wrestled since October of 2020 when she left due to injuries. So this was a big return match for her. So she comes out, she grabs the microphone and she's about to announce her opponent and looks towards Yu Ashino. And wrestling fans will formerly know Yu Ashino as the former Kagetsu. Kagetsu is one of the ambassadors and organizers of this year's event. But Kiona says, I don't want to face you. I want to face the person next to you. And she looks towards Hana's mother, Kyoko, who, of course, is retired and had not wrestled a match since 2017. So, they proceed to kind of do a whole song and dance. I can't wrestle, I'm not dressed. And then she goes to the back to change while Ashino gives a speech. Yu Ashino, of course, recently announcing his new name. And gave a wonderful kind of public speech to the crowd. But then out comes Kyoko Kimura, dressed to wrestle. And I thought these two had a really emotional and wonderful performance in front of this crowd. For both of them, from the get-go, after the lockup, you can see both of them like wiping tears from their eyes, and just honestly thinking about the emotion here of, having to organize this event. If you're Kyoko Kimura, and then performing in front of it, and just, to me, they proceeded in just what felt like an endless forearm battle between the two of them, and it's something that's so special, I think, about especially Japanese wrestling, where the forearm exchanges or any sort of like stand in the ring sort of fight, it's such an emotional release of just tension and just whatever is going, like, it's such a great metaphor of just battling through, I think, the obstacles in your mind that I felt was wonderfully displayed here. So I highly encourage everybody to check this match out. I mean, technically, maybe not the best match on the show, but definitely the highlight and the most emotional match I think you might see in quite some time. And the rest of the card seemed to be filled with, a good mix of comedy and tribute for various people involved in Hana's life, including several members of Stardom, including Keno from Noah and Ajikong making appearances. Kairi also had some presence on the show, as well as a lot of video packages and emotional speeches. So, profits go to Kyoko Kimura if you choose to purchase this show. And again, I encourage everybody to follow along using Karen's wonderful translation report for English speakers. At this point, Kate, I decided to maybe bundle a number of these stories together. Number one, because a lot of it's concerning Japan, but also because this was sort of a staggering amount of stories that specifically deal with mental health issues in our wrestling community. And, following up on the conversation that you and I had talking about this whole Lacey Evans thing from weeks back, I thought it might be a good opportunity for me to kind of provide you with the space to maybe speak a bit more about something you're clearly very passionate about.
Well, I think that certainly, as I said, I've not watched the Hana Kimura tribute show yet. I'm, of course, very aware of the story. When it happened, I remember I was actually up very late that night and was seeing, I'd check on Twitter and I could see some of what was going on, and I remember thinking, like, as I was going to sleep, it's like, Jesus, I hope she's okay. So it was just awful to see the news the next day, and that's like 22 years old. That is no age. I mean, that's barely an adult, and someone truly with a very promising life ahead of her. It's unfortunately something that does seem common in this industry, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that, which I don't need to get into right now, but certainly one would hope that with this show, it does help raise awareness of the need to be a little sensitive and a little cautious around other people, and particularly with online discourse, which can just can get out of hand so quickly. And it should be a warning not to take these issues lightly. This is, I was reading that the horrifying statistic earlier about the number of suicides per year globally, which amounts to about one every 40 seconds. That's a shocking statistic, and it's something that I think a lot of people are affected by. And as I said, I hope that there's I hope that there continues to be attention paid to wrestling community where it does seem to be particularly acute.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, I mean, I feel like these are definitely issues that maybe have persisted throughout wrestling's history, but maybe it's just that we're starting to be a bit more aware of it and we're talking about it now. So, hopefully there's some
I think
positivity.
that there
Yeah.
are.
Yes. Go on.
I think that gradually it is becoming more acceptable to discuss these things, which is good. But it's still there's a lot of work to be done. Clearly.
We move on to North American professional wrestling now, and we have an updated card for Hell in a Cell, Kate. Of course, following Raw last night, we now have 4 matches officially announced for Hell in a Cell. The first of which is Cody versus Seth inside the Hell in a Cell for a Hell in a... oh, man. I, Hell, are you a Hell in... I'm so sick of saying this already. Are you a Hell in a Cell or Hell in the Cell person, Kate? Big debate yesterday.
I find Hell in a Cell rolls off the tongue more easily, and I heard you and John discussing it. I can get I can wrap my head around either, but I'm going to go with Hell in a Cell just because it flows much better.
There are multiple
I'm going
cells.
to go for the spoken word.
Yeah, we acknowledge that there's more than one here, so this is only a cell. So that is the only cell match announced so far, but also we have for the Raw Women's Championship, just added yesterday after winning the main event of Raw, Becky Lynch has been added to Bianca Belair's title defense against Asuka. So that is a 3-way. And then we also had Bobby Lashley versus Omos, and announced yesterday after Raw went off the air, the stipulation that MVP has chosen is a handicap match. So it'll be Bobby Lashley versus Omos and MVP. And then we also have announced Kevin Owens versus Ezekiel. So that's basically a handicap match too, isn't it, Kate? You have Kevin Owens taking on maybe Elias, maybe Ezekiel. So
well, but it's only a handicap match if they both show up. Maybe like Kevin's playing some 3-dimensional chess here. Like he's going to force a handicap match and insist that Elias and Ezekiel team together against him.
Do you have much interest in this show so far?
No. Look, I think the wrestling will be fine to good, but I feel like Cody and Seth have been very happy with the 2 matches they had. Storyline wise, I don't feel that there is a progression. Like, yes, okay, now we're moving to the cell, but I don't actually feel that the story has changed much since the beginning. And they're very good promos, but it is starting to feel a little stale to me. Like I said, I'm sure the match will be great. I'm not worried about that. I don't really see the need to go to the 3-way for the women's title. I don't see why Becky needs to be added to that. Particularly, they're very thin on women competitors right now. And if they're going to be diverting a bunch of them to this tag team tournament, then they need to space out their challengers a little better than they're doing. I also just didn't love, like, okay, Asuka beats Becky last week to become the number 1 contender. So Becky beats Asuka this week to become the other number 1 contender. And it feels very, I don't know. So,
TV matches were made and TV was produced, basically.
Yes, exactly. I was watching a GCW show on the weekend that started at 11 o'clock at night, our time. And I was more awake throughout the course of that than I was watching Raw last night, which ended at 11 o'clock my time. So.
Also announced last night on Raw is WWE's return to Saudi Arabia on November 5th for the latest Crown Jewel event. Crown Jewel will be taking place Saturday, November 5th from Riyadh in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And here the WWE tweets, "Legends will rise once again." Does that mean anything to you? What legends could they be referring to, Kate?
I don't know who they haven't already brought there. I mean, the rising again. I guess my immediate assumption, like, well, not assumption, but my mind immediately goes to the Undertaker. But that seems, I don't know. Like they've done Undertaker matches there. They have not been good. He is retired now. Maybe stick with that. I don't know. I mean, look, the Saudi government will throw whatever money they want at this to get the performers that they want. I don't know who it could be. Like, unless they're planning on bringing Austin. It's the only other.
Yeah, that is the question now. Now that Austin has broken the seal, so to speak, is will he entertain a Saudi Arabia offer or another offer to
Yeah.
return? I mean, I believe he's somewhat indicated that like he's perfectly satisfied with what he just did at WrestleMania. So we'll see if
As
he
well, he
sticks.
should be. It's
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll get better than that, honestly. It's hard for me to see the Taker, like to see Taker coming back, after just so
Yeah.
much of, I think, I could see him like maybe doing an appearance, walk out. Maybe he'll give a TED talk. Like that's what I want to see. Just him come out, give a big presentation.
Do the inspirational speech.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. His dad's life lessons, like why not? I don't want to see him wrestle, but
No.
but I always have time for that entrance, especially in a stadium. So that's
Oh yeah.
happening November 5th. SmackDown and Rampage ratings. This comes to us from Friday, of course. SmackDown on Friday, built around a big title unification between the Usos and RK Bro. SmackDown topped 2 million viewers, and for the 2 million views for the first time in over a month, averaging 2,031,000 viewers and approximately 0.45 in the demo. According to Brandon Thurston and Showbuzz Daily, of course, it was SmackDown's highest overall viewership since the start of this year's NBA playoffs. SmackDown finished second among network programs, which was led by ABC Shark Tank. SmackDown was also the top program amongst adults, 18 to 34, while cable was dominated by the NBA. AEW Rampage finished number 13 among cable originals. The 7 p.m. start time proved to be more effective than the previous 2 weeks, where it began at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. The show averaged 410,000 viewers and approximately 0.14 in the demo, again according to Brandon Thurston and Showbuzz Daily. The show grew 21% in overall viewers and 26% in the 18 to 49 demo compared to last week's show at 5:30. So I guess no surprise.
Not
The
really surprising. No, the people will settle down to watch television at 7 more than they will at 5:30. That's
And that people will watch a wrestling show if you have a big thing promoted ahead of time. So we'll see if that momentum carries on forward. Now, an interesting note about Rampage this week is that there seems to be still some confusion about when exactly Rampage is airing, because it was advertised in a little tiny graphic. If you squint really hard on Friday, Kate, you could see that Rampage was advertised for a 5:30 start time, and that still appears to be the case if you go to TNT's own website right now, where you can see 5:30 p.m. Here it is, AEW All Elite Wrestling Rampage. What's also interesting is that they initially advertised the countdown to Double or Nothing for 10 p.m. TNT now has that listed for a 10:30 p.m. start time. So Dave Meltzer has noted that much of this is in flux because of the nature of the NHL playoffs. So, but at least temporarily, I mean, Rampage, this has been a terrible month for them, having to bounce around, just kind of not knowing what to promote for their audience, always having to change things. But 5:30 looks to be the start time again. Now, this is also interesting because currently, at least at last check for me, like the show that is happening in Vegas, it will be live this Friday.
yeah.
And the show is at least the announced showtime is 3 p.m. Eastern. So they're going to have to change that if they want to start and go live on air at 2:30 p.m. or sorry, 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. 3 p.m. Pacific is what they listed.
I feel for them because they are going to they're going to get a ton of flack over something that's not really in their control. I think that people who bought tickets to the show, and I've seen mumblings of this already, they're already confused as to what exactly they bought tickets to go and see. This is it's a mess, and I don't know how you avoid it, but for sure it will it's going to create some backlash, and unfortunately it's AEW that's going to take it, even though it's there's absolutely nothing that they could do to avoid it.
Yeah, again, like brings up the question, like, is it more worthwhile to put Rampage on first at 5:30 instead of putting it on at 10:30 and maybe swapping places with the countdown to put that at 5:30? I don't know. I'm assuming, like, are there matches yet to be announced? Maybe that they might be waiting on Rampage for to finalize that.
It's a huge card. I mean, yes, there's that possibility, definitely, particularly something to do with the TNT title. But yeah, I mean, it's full. It's gonna be quite the night for us. I hope they're not planning on adding more than one match.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's about it for the news today. Kate, thank you again so much for joining me as always and sharing me a lot of your great insight. Again,
thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Again, we will not be away for too long because I will be rejoined by John Pollock at 3 o'clock Eastern time today for our latest edition of Ask Away, or Ask Us Anything mailbag. That is happening live for all Double Plus patrons at postwrestlingcafe.com. The podcast will be released for all patrons later on this evening as well. So that kind of wraps it up for us. Kate, where can people find more of you?
They can find me on Twitter at She Rants About Wrestling, at She Rants MTL. And talking about all sorts of wrestling related issues.
Yeah, you had a chance to watch some wrestling over the weekend, and I saw you tweeting about the GCW show.
Mm-hmm.
Did you enjoy it? Was it good?
I did.
Joey Janela's foot on fire.
That was something.
What happened exactly?
Well, he dumped lighter fluid on his foot and set it on fire. That wasn't really so much the talking point from this, I don't think, as how woefully ill-equipped him and everyone else in the venue seemed to be to deal with a flaming foot.
Fuck.
That
sentence is hilarious.
The words that I never would have foreseen myself saying at any point. There were people coming in like dumping bottles of water on there, and if I were in that venue, I don't know if I would have felt great about my choices at that point. But look, it came off. I mean, the stunt came off, not the foot. It didn't cause any problems. It created some memorable gifs and got a lot of people talking. Certainly, there were a lot of other matches at the show that I preferred.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Kate. I'm not sure if we have some. Let me just double check the website. But anyway, it's a Joey Janela in his wrestling career. There's always, I think, a lot more color attached to it now that he's out of AEW. And yes, we do have a report from John Pine on the site talking about GCW Maniac as well. So go to postwrestling.com to check that one out. And that's it for me. I'll talk to most of you guys later at 3 o'clock or tomorrow. Bye.